Is Alicia, and this is my culture bag presentation. I used a grocery bag here to hold my contents and my symbols for my presentation. So my first one to represent my race and ethnicity. I have two of them for a reason. My first one is an American flag hat. And my second one is a traditional Mexican sombrero. So I chose these items because my mother is American. She's white, from European descent, and my father is Mexican. My mother's family immigrated here years ago in the 1800s from different countries in Europe, and my father's family is actually my grandparents migrated here from Mexico. They were migrant farm workers, and they ended up living here, and my father was the first generation born here in the United States. So that's kind of a big part of my culture, and it's just having two symbols kind of represents how I've felt a lot in my life. Being able to not fully identify with one culture, but being very okay with kind of a newer biracial generation that we are, and being Mexican and American and not really fitting in with one group or the other. So I think that's kind of a new concept. So I don't really have one symbol to represent my two halves of my culture and my ethnicity, but I think that was kind of an issue, I guess. Being biracial is still something that's still kind of new and different than what the traditional standard families are. So my second one is an Ernest Hemingway book of traditional stories, and he's a very famous American author, and I've always actually spoken English. Although my father speaks Spanish, he was really busy working when I was younger, so unfortunately I didn't get to learn the language. So, I mean, like 99% of the time we spoke English in my household, and read, very traditional stories, read American classics, all in the English language. I wish I would have learned Spanish because it's truly, truly a valuable language to have, especially at this time with all of the different cultures in America, and how Spanish especially is one of our upcoming languages. But yes, I was growing up, my mother was always home with us speaking English, so that's why that one was a artifact of mine, just because of the English traditional American classic literature. So for my next one, I chose, it's actually for my tradition, but it is a food. It's a tamale. And tamales, it's a huge tradition in the Mexican culture to make tamales on Christmas Eve. So this kind of represents the making of the tamales and eating tamales on Christmas Eve. And the importance of Christmas Eve for Mexicans especially. It's a lot about having your family together and celebrating Christmas and going to Mass for Christmas. And then my mom kind of liked to integrate a lot of both our Mexican and our American cultures into a lot of the things that we did when we were younger. So on Christmas Eve we would make tamales, we'd hang out with our family, we'd go to midnight Mass, and then on the next day, on Christmas Day, we would spend time with her family. We would eat a traditional, Christmas ham or something of that sort, and celebrate Christmas more on Christmas Day, whereas in the Mexican culture it's majority celebrated on Christmas Eve. So the making of tamales was a really fun kind of experience. All the women would eat together in my family, even my mom would make them with all of my dad's side of the family. So for my next artifact for the cultural food that we eat, I chose tortillas. Tortillas were eaten pretty much every night in my household. My dad would eat, my mom, she would make Mexican food really well, but she also would cook her standard traditional dishes of, a vegetable and potatoes with chicken. My dad would still use a tortilla at the table. Whenever we ate spaghetti or something, he would eat a jalapeno because he was just very used to different flavors growing up in his household. But my mom also mixed a lot of like tortillas with traditional foods in America. She would make, instead of having tuna fish sandwiches, we'd have tuna wrapped in tortillas for lunch. So again, kind of like that mixing of cultures that she tended to do when we were younger. But we always had tortillas in the house. I still continue to have tortillas even though I live on my own now. It's almost always in my house. It's just kind of something that I grew up with. It's very traditional for me. And then finally, I grew up with a lot of Michael Jackson music in my household. My dad was a lover of funk and all that kind of 70s, 80s disco-y kind of thing, and my mom loved classic rock. But Michael Jackson was something that we always agreed upon in the house. It was always, you know, we had dance parties to him in the living room. We always listened to him. My dad loved him. He would do funny dance moves with us when we were younger, and I still love Michael Jackson to this day. He's one of my favorite artists. So I think it's kind of a interesting component of my childhood, just because it's not a traditional thing one way or another. It was just something that, you know, we could kind of agree upon in the house, and it was a fun kind of classic. I guess you can almost say it's classic American music now. You know, the older Michael Jackson. Yeah, that's a little bit of a look into my culture and my background and how I was raised, and the traditions in my household. Thank you.